One thing I noticed from the data was that lots of the resources recorded were about upper class and wealthier people. Now, this can be for a number of reasons and can also therefore cause problems. So, these people may often have more influence and therefore be able to be more prominent within campaigns. They can also be more prominent within campaigns because they do not have the key problem that was central for many people, especially before the 20th century, if they wanted to live LGBTQ plus lives, which was that for many people, if they were openly LGBTQ plus, they could be rejected by their families and society if not imprisoned, and therefore they would have to have some level of independent economic wealth to often be able to risk openly being LGBTQ plus. Now we see this happening in a number of examples. Before the 20th century, there are two key examples of people who lived LGBTQ plus lifestyles and were not prosecuted in part because of their wealth and influence. The first is Dr. John de Verdion. This was a biological woman who came to the UK, lived in London for multiple decades, cross-dressing as Dr. John de Verdion. He had a prominent place in society, teaching the children of multiple rich aristocratic families languages. He was generally known within society to be cross-dressing, and this was considered quite scandalous, but he was still accepted and lived until his death in 1804 in this LGBTQ plus way. So this shows that if you have influence, good connections, and a middle or upper class education and status, you could quite possibly live an LGBTQ plus lifestyle. Another example was in 1880, where there was a drag ball which was raided by the police. A number of men were arrested, all of them aristocratic or in the gentry. When they finally came to court, they were not charged with public indecency because the judge ruled that he did not feel that men of this status, who were gentlemanlike, could really have participated in such activities as the police were claiming. So in both cases, we see how influence and wealth can make you less likely to be prosecuted, even though it was not a confirmation. Nowadays, this still happens as the LGBTQ plus rights movement took off. One prominent example is how celebrities are able to campaign far more openly and have a huge amount of influence. For example, Sir Ian McKellen is still a prominent member of the LGBTQ plus community who still talks about these issues. He began the UK charity Stonewall for LGBTQ plus people to support them, and this shows that his wealth allows him to become even more influential within the movement. This becomes problematic when resources can focus on these wealthy, influential people who admittedly do much for the movement, but in focusing on these people, ignore people who had also massive parts of the movement but were not so wealthy or influential. For example, Marsha P. Johnson.